That is the sound of the new intro here for the Daily Ramble. I am Karl Schoening. I am happy you joined us this evening. It is September, jumping way ahead of myself, September 30th, and happy to get a little quick ramble in. Nothing's going to be too long tonight. I just want to talk a little Johnny football. I'll touch a little bit on the Derrick Rose injury. Hit a little bit of this Thursday night football game coming up. It's the Steelers versus the Ravens, a AFC North battle, and Michael Vick getting the start. And, we have a good show. Just a quick one for you tonight. Hopefully you're listening live. If not, immediately archived, and you can check it out tomorrow morning, and happy you tuned in. I am Karl Schoening. I am the owner and operator of RamblingSports.com and the host of the Daily Ramble. I usually don't have a good show for you, but hey, if you're still listening, happy you're doing so. We'll touch a little bit on Johnny Manziel, only because yesterday a story came out on TMZ. I have it up right now. I'm checking it out for the first time. I read about it all over today. The headline is, Cleveland Browns players furious over Johnny Manziel. Quote, put him in the damn game. Came out a little bit after midnight on the 29th, so it had all day to process, and just a couple quotes from in here. It's not just the Browns fans who want Johnny Manziel to start at QB. Several Cleveland players are also calling for number 2, and they're all anonymously quoted, obviously, because TMZ doesn't like to do things like this without, making sure that people's identities are safe, and they're not going to ever reveal their sources when it comes to things like this. But here's a quote. It's effed up. He's still riding the bench. They spoke with 3 starters on the Browns offense. Supposedly, TMZ, they're not the most reputable source in terms of, hard-hitting journalism, but they don't really lie. They have good sources. They're always out there, and I wouldn't doubt that maybe somebody like a Travis Benjamin, who isn't technically a starter, is maybe one of their sources, because he caught Johnny Manziel's first touchdown pass. And I'm sure Travis Benjamin wants Johnny Manziel in there over Josh McCown, and maybe he provided one of these quotes. They say, I love both Johnny and Josh, but it's effed up when you have Johnny come in and play well and has proven to the team that he is the right person for the job. And it's true. Browns are 1-2 this season, and the only game they won was the game Johnny played. And in that game against Tennessee, remember it was Mariota versus Manziel, Johnny got the start. He completed the game, and on the day he only completed 8 of 15 passes, which was a completion percentage of 53. He only had 172 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and that's pretty good. He only ran the ball 3 times for a yard, but at the same time, it's just how it goes. And then when he came in the week before, after McCown got hurt, he played pretty well against the Jets, who they were off to a strong start, and honestly, they didn't really use Johnny because, at least to his talents, because Manziel was the bench player, the backup, I should say, for the entire week of preparation. And he still didn't do bad. He completed 13 of 24 passes for a touchdown. He threw a pick as well. They didn't really use him in terms of bootlegs to the left or right to try and get him out of the pocket where he's dangerous, but he still had 5 carries recorded for 35 yards. So obviously that's the big difference between Johnny and a lot of other quarterbacks. It's Johnny Manziel. One of these other quotes, he likes to use his legs. One of these other quotes is spot on. You can't get better unless you play. We won when he played, and Coach has got to trust him like he trusts Josh. When Johnny is in the game, it puts the defense on edge. He doesn't just sit in the pocket. He makes plays. Coach has got to make the change now. And that's the main thing here. The article, it was only really brief. You know how TMZ is. They don't have the most high attention span readers. It says, as for McCown, he's 0-2 as the starter. He says he, quote, understands why fans want to see Manziel, but insists that he's the right man for the job. of course Josh McCown will say he's the right man for the job. I mean, hey, there's only one starting quarterback. Starting quarterbacks in this league, if they do well, make a lot of money. Starting quarterbacks, if they're mediocre, make a lot of money. And, McCown's just obviously protecting his. So today, a lot of Cleveland fans were asked about this because, like I said, TMZ isn't some, trash website that people are just like, oh, it's TMZ. They make stuff up. They don't really make things up. There's no reason for TMZ to make this up. They wouldn't. So, obviously, they have strong sources. So, what's the media going to do? They're going to blow it up. ESPN wrote about it. Cleveland.com wrote about it. You can see a lot of people reacting to this TMZ article. So, of course, you go out to the practice if you're a Cleveland media member, and you ask people, hey, did you hear about this? And I think somewhere around 7 starters, I was reading the Deadspin article, 7 starters denied that it was them, and they still back up Josh McCown. And honestly, that's what you're going to do. You're going to back up Josh McCown because no one's going to say, yeah, I said that, because that just gets them in all kind of trouble with the team. That starts some locker room issues with Josh McCown and, Johnny Manziel, and no one's going to publicly say that they said that. Everyone's going to deny the reports. But I imagine there are suspicions within that locker room that, hey, we would be playing better with Johnny. And I can understand that. It's basically how things are going to go if you have Johnny Manziel as your backup and a guy who, hasn't done anything as a starter in the NFL, really, except go 0-2 so far this season. So that's honestly the quick little story on that. Obviously, Manziel, he just has a lot of drama, but the Cleveland Browns are the ones creating this drama because the only drama that you would have around Manziel if he started is if he wasn't playing well. He's done a good job. You haven't heard of anything, and he usually does a good job during football season anyway, of staying out of the spotlight, no social media. He's not seen partying, not that you can do much partying in Cleveland anyway, but he's not in the spotlight. The only reason he's in the spotlight is because he's the clear option. And as you've heard me say before, the Browns are intent on out-Browning themselves in this situation and keeping Manziel on the bench for whatever reason. Who knows why they're like that. But we'll see more of this as it develops. I'm going to talk on it. I love me some Johnny football. He is, quite honestly, the most exciting college player I've ever seen. And I'll say that he's unproven in the NFL because he hasn't gotten his chance yet. And honestly, it's getting to the point where if they're really just going to stick with McCown and, Johnny just has these kind of random starts every now and again, mainly because the other guy is injured, that's just unfair to Johnny because he had probably one of the best statistical careers in college football history. And they, from day one, have said he's the backup. He had all that. He went to rehab this summer. He's still the backup. So it creates some issues in the locker room regardless because I imagine there are a lot of people who are like, hey, look, we get that he didn't play as a rookie, but now he's in his sophomore year. He deserves a chance. And I imagine a lot of people agree with that, especially the Cleveland fans. You got to realize these Cleveland fans, they don't have much to be excited about. Put in the Heisman winner. Put in the guy that can make exciting plays. Get them off their feet. It's tough being a Browns fan. You have this electric quarterback who reminds me of Michael Vick. Not quite Michael Vick, but he reminds me of him. Put him in. That's all I'm saying. And, TMZ, I'm happy that they came out with this. They got their anonymous sources. They're obviously not going to reveal it, but they stand behind it after the players denied it. Because, of course, the players are going to deny it. That's just how they do it. Like I said, no one's going to fess up to being the anonymous source. Speaking of Michael Vick, he's getting his first start tomorrow night. It's going to be a AFC North battle between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens will be visiting Pittsburgh. They come in 0-3 to Pittsburgh, while the Steelers are 2-1. They had a narrow escape last week against the Rams. 12-6 was the score. Michael Vick came in, he didn't do terrible, but Michael Vick, I think he's going to have a good game. My friend Cade, he still thinks that Michael Vick is going to have some kind of crazy game, and he's going to play him in his fantasy team, or at least that's what he said. I think it was a joke, but I wouldn't put it past him to start Vick. I have some stats here from Vick. So far this season, when Vick has played, he came in kind of towards the end of that game, and he didn't play bad. He went 5 of 6 in the passing game, and he threw for 38 yards. He didn't get a touchdown. He didn't lead the offense to a touchdown, but he led them to a field goal that kind of made it to where the Rams had to get a touchdown, and then that was pretty much the end of the game because Nick Foles and the Rams offense can't move the ball. So Michael Vick now comes in against this 0-3 Baltimore Ravens team, and it's a Ravens team that's 0-3, but they've lost every single game by, I believe, a field goal or less than a field goal, if not that. So it's one of these teams that it's like, their defense hasn't really played great, but it's not like it's less than a touchdown, I should say. Every game has been less than a touchdown. The first game against the Broncos was 19-13, and that was the game that Terrell Suggs went out. I believe it was an Achilles injury, and he's done for the season, and he represents the toughness and heart and soul of that front line, front four for the Ravens. Then against the Raiders aren't having a bad year either. They couldn't stop the Raiders, though. Amari Cooper went crazy in that game. 37-33 was that final. So, yet again, the Ravens are a, Joe Flacco lucky drive, at the end of the game, kind of what Joe Flacco does sometimes, touchdown drive away from winning that one. And then last week against the Bengals, who are 3-0, they're undefeated. They're looking pretty good. It's not like, the final score was 28-24. It's not like they're losing to teams that, they should beat. They're not that good, these Ravens, but now they have a chance to pick up their first win against the Steelers because we're not sure how Michael Vick will perform as the starter. We have the same questions that we've always had with this older Michael Vick. How's he going to do? Does he still have the legs? Can he hold on to the football? That was his main problem in Philadelphia. He was balling statistically in Philadelphia, except he couldn't hold on to the football. He was fumbling it a lot. And then also, Michael Vick, while he was great at passing, he's really gotten better in terms of studying and knowing where his receivers are and knowing the defenses that he's going up against. Michael Vick just needs to stay healthy, too. You're talking about Ben Roethlisberger going down for 6 to 8 weeks. Michael Vick, can he last 6 to 8 weeks? I think he can, and I think he will. He'll do a solid job as the starter for the Steelers, and he has some weapons to work with. He obviously has Antonio Brown and Heath Miller as his receivers. Le'Veon Bell is back. I like the way he ran on Sunday in his first game back after the 2-game suspension. And, I think Le'Veon Bell, who's coming off an ACL injury, he was the fantasy leading scorer last year, so that means he put up a lot of good numbers. I think he'll be a good weapon in the backfield with Vick, and maybe we're going to see some zone reads. That's something you couldn't really do with Ben Roethlisberger and expect him to run and pick up some yards. And that's my last question. Does Michael Vick still have the Jets? This season he hasn't had a game where he finished with positive yardage. And, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're better than the Jets were. And last year, Michael Vick was 1-2 in 3 games that he started for the Jets. So let's see. This will be the first week. Tomorrow night, it's on CBS. Ravens and Steelers. That should be a good matchup. I think both teams are going to be hungry to show what they can do, pick up some wins. You have Baltimore, who's 16th in points per game. Pittsburgh's 11th in yards per game. Pittsburgh is actually 5th. So they're in the top 5 putting things up, but that's also with Ben Roethlisberger having those great first two games where I think he was like the second highest rated quarterback in fantasy on ESPN through after Tom Brady, who had two phenomenal games to start off the season. That also plays into this next one, passing yards per game. Joe Flacco has that Baltimore offense 8th in passing. So he's not doing bad. And then Steve Smith Sr. had just a phenomenal game last week. And that's going to be something that, Flacco does. He likes to keep the ball in the air. So he'll probably take advantage of the, Steelers secondary. I imagine he'll be working that air. Pittsburgh 3rd in passing, so like I said, that's mainly because of Ben Roethlisberger. But, hey, Michael Vick went 5 of 6 last week in passes, so maybe he can keep going. Then rushing yards per game, both teams are kind of above the 20th mark in that ranking, 27th for Baltimore and 22nd for Pittsburgh. So kind of look for that. It'll be a good game tomorrow night. Obviously, division rivals. And that's really kind of about it for that game. Just a little preview for you. Michael Vick getting the start, and I think he's going to ball out. I think he'll have a good game. I really do. I don't think he'll have a dominant game, but I think he'll be able to beat the Ravens at home. I think he should. I feel like the best home court advantage you have, home field advantage you have in sports, home court or home field, is in football. Because mainly the offense needs to communicate, and they're quiet for their offense, and they're loud for their defense. So Steeler fans, they get into it. They have their terrible towels. They're loud. It'll be a Thursday night game, so the whole nation will be watching. Technically, Thursday nights have the best ratings, by the way. I think Thursdays and Sundays have the best ratings typically. So a lot of people will be watching, and I'm happy for Michael Vick that he still has a spot in this league. I liked him when he was with the Eagles. I'm an Eagles fan, and I think he's somebody who will do well if he still has it. He's 35 years old. We'll have to see. He could have me eating my words tomorrow, but I don't know. I believe in Michael Vick. That'll just about do it. It was a short show, like I was going to say. Touch a little bit on the Derrick Rose situation. I said I would. He broke his orbital. He has an orbital fracture, which is kind of like near the eye. And that's a shame. He had surgery today. He's out, I think, 2 to 4 weeks or something like that. So he should be good to go opening night, if not opening week. You got to feel for D. Rose. He's missed about 100 games in the last 2 seasons. He obviously missed that entire 2012-2013 season after the ACL injury in the 2012 playoffs. And, D. Rose, this obviously has nothing to do with his athleticism. He just kind of ran into an elbow, got elbowed in the head, and that's a tough break. But D. Rose is just too athletic for his own good. I feel like his athleticism is the reason his knees are kind of messed up from time to time. His ankles get messed up. He's going so fast, he's so explosive that all of a sudden, hey, our body's like, hey, we have brakes, but our brakes aren't that good. It's like your car. It's not going to slow down and make a stop if you're going 100 miles an hour and you slam on it, And sometimes he does get a good planted foot. He just try to stop too quickly, I guess, after sprinting down the court, and that messes up things. The real crazy stat was, I saw this on ESPN today, interesting one. The last 2 seasons, Derrick Rose has missed 100 games. I just said that. In the last 18 seasons, Tim Duncan's career, he's missed 97. That's kind of crazy. Knock on wood, Spurs fans. But, hey, that just shows how he's been Old Faithful, Mr. Reliable. The Tim Duncan, obviously just a great competitor out there, and most of those 97 games recently have been just because of rest. I remember he missed like 16 games in the 2004-2005 season with like a rolled ankle. I can't really remember anything later. I know he had, I think it was plantar fasciitis or knee tendinosis or something like that, kind of in '07 or '08 or '09, kind of when he was putting on a little bit of weight, looking a little older. But since then, he's done a tremendous job of just being trimmed down, and Tim Duncan treating his body right, keeping pressure off those knees, does a great job. Speaking of Tim Duncan, by the way, tomorrow we have a special treat on the show. My dad, Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, will be joining us. We'll be doing a Southwest Division of the NBA preview. So a little bit of Pelicans, a little bit of Grizzlies, a little bit of Spurs, obviously, Rockets, and Mavericks. Looking forward to that. We'll be doing that tomorrow, and I'll be promoting that one, obviously. You can follow us on Twitter at RamblingSports1. You go to the website, you can find all of our other social media, but Twitter is the main one that I update. And you can always check out our articles. I didn't even really talk too much on NBA 2K, but that has been taking up so much of my time. It's pretty great. It's a good game. 2K is the game that I buy every single year. So I think I might have even talked about it a little bit on Monday. Great game. Yeah, I think I did talk about it on Monday. Anyhow, happy you guys tuned in. Hope you enjoyed the show. I'm going to sign off. Karl Schoening. See you tomorrow. Thanks for listening, Ramblers.